It's been said that suicide is the ultimate critique of life, an act taken when living becomes more painful than dying. It is tragic, traumatic, and permanent. Suicide advocates tell us that choosing to die is our right. Websites exist to teach people how to commit suicide. Countering these cultural voices are stigmas still surrounding suicide, namely that it is shameful, an act of cowardice that should not be discussed. Voices can be silenced, but suicide rates speak loudly. Every year, over 146,000 Americans take their own lives. In 2015, Jared Fabac lost his father to suicide, and it changed the course of his life. Today, he's a licensed pastoral counselor and the lead pastor of a thriving community church. He says the first step in suicide prevention is encouraging people freely about their pain.
Well, joining us in studio is Pastor Jared Fabac. Jared, thank you for being with us today.
Oh, it's my honor. It's my honor. Thank you, guys. And I do just want to say, watching Kelly's story, I know she's probably watching, and just let her know how proud everyone is of her and just the work she continues to do.
Yeah.
And Kelly, if you're watching this, we're so proud of you, and you're doing an amazing thing.
Amen.
Yeah, this is so important,
Yeah.
and we're so glad you're here. And to talk about also what God has done in your life, it's amazing. First, tell us about growing up a little bit. Two brothers, right?
Yep.
What was your family life like?
Growing up was incredible. So yeah, youngest of three boys. So that made life a lot harder, right? Being the youngest of the group. You hear it all the time. They say the baby's the favorite. They didn't get that memo, my brothers, because that was not the case. But it was an incredible family. My parents, they did split when I was 8 years old, and so we did live in a divided home. And but we were all very close. They did a great job co-parenting. They did a great job raising us. They were always present. And me and my brothers, we were very, very close. And so we grew up with a very close-knitted family that we really leaned on through all things.
So you grew up Catholic. Would you say that you had a personal relationship with Jesus, or was it more of just like going through the motions? Mom and dad are going to mass, I'm going with them.
Yeah, I think that for most young people, you adopt a bit of your parents' faith. But for me personally, I always say in Catholicism, you know, Jesus had a relationship with me. I just don't know if I reciprocated it, right? And so for me, faith was very academic growing up.
Okay.
It was a knowledge thing. It was consume as much knowledge as you can about the presence of God, so that you had answers on things. And so for me, that was faith. It was an academic challenge, not necessarily an intimate relationship thing.
I see. Okay.
So Christmas time, 2016, you're getting ready for the holidays. You get a phone call that changed everything. What happened?
So every Christmas, our family heads up north. We go and we spend that time with our family in Pennsylvania. And so it was just the same as every other year as we prepared to do that. And at the time, my wife, she was out of the house getting things together. She was shopping, and my phone rings, and I see it's my brother. And just like I joked about a second ago, you see a call from your brother, and I think he's coming after me for something, right? And so I answered that phone, and I just said, hey, you know, what's up, bud? And it was my oldest brother, Seth. And I could tell his voice was shaking. And he just said, Jared, Dad's gone, you know, and there's no way to prepare for that. And so you just get this initial, I almost assume that he's joking with me, almost assume that it's not real. And so I said, what are you talking about? And he said, yeah, you know, the cops are still here. And he said, I'm going to go talk to them, and then I'll give you a call back, but Dad's gone. And so I said, okay, you know, get some answers, give me a call back, we'll talk through this, and hang up the phone. And I remember sitting back and thinking in my mind, holding on to that comment he made about the cops still there. And I assumed if the cops are there, it meant one of two things. Either someone killed my father, or my father killed himself. And it hit me that he took his life. And it was in that moment I realized that we had a journey ahead. And there is no, you know, you look for answers and you look for reasons and all those types of things, and you don't get it in that moment. And so the entire world as I knew it changed instantly. with the notification from one call.
Wow. Well, were there any signs leading up to your father's death? Anything that maybe you picked up on, or maybe some other family members picked up on?
Yeah, I think in hindsight, right? All the time, when someone walks through this process, a lot of the times when they go through the reflection process in the grief, they start to pick up on things where they say, I wish I would have, known, I wish I would have said something. And we certainly had that for him. Some of the things that we realized in my dad's walk was, he became overly emotional with things that were always normal. And then he stopped doing some things that were always normal as well. An example would be, my father put up a Christmas tree every single year, and that year he chose not to, right? That year he would become emotional about, going to the games of his grandkids, and emotional about conversations we would have. And it was just loaded with a heaviness that, looking back, we realized he really began to let go of some things in that process. And so there was definitely signs, subtle, which is one of the biggest challenges when you walk with someone having suicidal ideation. They are subtle, but they were definitely existent.
What about you as a son? What kind of emotions, I know there's a myriad of them you dealt with in the weeks, months leading or after this suicide, but what did you wrestle with the most? Is there guilt? What's associated with it?
Yeah.
So I think when you think about losing a loved one in that way, there's a sense of guilt that immediately comes over you almost organically, right? It overwhelms you because two things come into your mind. One, you wonder, what could I have done to stop this? And you start to beat yourself up over that. And you start to play this game in your mind where you look for opportunities where you could have intervened in some way. And so the guilt absolutely comes up. The second thing is the shame element, to the point to where you become shameful for the person's action. And you don't want to dishonor the person you love. And so that creates this really difficult dilemma in your life where you start to say, how do I tell people what happened? How do I begin to have these conversations without dishonoring someone that I have so much love for, that I have so much appreciation and respect for? And that creates a really difficult mental challenge within yourself when you begin to walk out, being a survivor of someone with suicide. And so that was a big challenge out of the gate, the guilt, the shame, and then just playing the mind games in your own mind as you begin to navigate the process of healing in that.
Well, how did you deal with those, the shame and the guilt within your own heart and mind? How did you personally deal with that and try to overcome that?
So this was where, for me personally, walking and navigating this is where I learned what the word surrender meant.
Wow.
And so for me personally, as I began to navigate this, the first thing I had to do in order to start to make sense out of this is accept the reality of what happened. And I remember there was a conversation, and we were navigating, talking to everyone about the situation and what had happened and how it went. We were telling people that my father was sick, and you just didn't know what to say. And I remember one of our friends coming up to us, and he said, "Hey, I'm really sorry to hear about your dad. What happened?" And I was with my mother at the time, and I said, Dad took his life. And there was a freedom that came over me in that moment where I said, if I want to heal from this thing, I better become willing to admit that it's real. And that was the first step in my healing process, was just admitting the reality of what we were walking through. I mean, let's be honest. How can I invite Jesus to heal something if I'm not willing to admit that I need healed from it?
Wow.
And so that's where it was step one in that walk.
And speaking of healing, you allowed God to do some amazing things in your heart and life, and He has done. I mean, what did you almost discover a new faith in a sense?
Oh, beyond.
A reconnection of some,
Beyond. I discovered the authentic presence of Jesus.
Out of this situation, incredible.
Without question. You know, we use the scripture all the time, Romans 8:28, where we talk about how God uses all things for the good of those who love Him. And for me, this verse of scripture became real in this trauma. And you know, I remember laying in my bed in the aftermath of this and looking up at the ceiling and just speaking out to God and saying, there is no way that I can walk this thing out by myself. I'm not equipped. I don't have the strength. I don't have the courage. I don't have the boldness, any of it. And I need to surrender it to you. And it was the first time that I experienced intimacy with Jesus. And so that's what came out of this trauma. It wasn't the knowledge of Jesus. I already knew Jesus existed. It wasn't even the understanding of His power. It was the existence of intimacy within that relationship that no one in my life could fulfill except for Jesus. And that was uncovered in that trauma.
Yeah, and he turns beauty. He turns ashes into beauty,
Sure
and he's definitely done that in your life. You're a lead pastor, and you're a licensed counselor,
I mean,
so that's
would you
amazing.
have ever thought, even before, years before, you'd be a pastor?
Andrew, I still don't think I'm going to be. I'm still working through this process. No, I think that what I learned in that process was just to trust God with what he feels is the calling on your life. You know, I look back and I had all kinds of ambitions. It was in business, and we were growing a very successful company. We were doing all kinds of things along those lines. But it wasn't fulfilling what needed to be fulfilled. And it's crazy how you don't realize that until you experience a godly fulfillment in your life. And so for me, when I got aligned with the mission that God was calling me to, getting into pastoral work and starting that process as a pastoral counselor and then working into where we are today, every step of the way became a new revelation of God's mercy, of God's grace, of God's goodness. And so here we are today, still resting in it and still working our way through it.
Well, as the lead pastor, I mean, before we're going to actually get into some practical tips, hopefully people watching at home can take away on how to assess risk if somebody's experiencing suicidal thoughts. But right before we get into that, I mean, how can the church be better at helping individuals who are experiencing suicidal thoughts or pastoring and really coming alongside individuals who have lost loved ones to suicide?
Sure. Now, I think it's a great question. I think it's a conversation that needs to start, right? I mean, just what can the church do better when it comes to mental health, when it comes to suicide awareness and things like that? And I think there's two things that the church can really begin to do in terms of battling what's going on in the suicide awareness arena. And I think the first thing is simply to create an atmosphere for the conversation, right? We said it a little bit ago. There's this stigma of guilt and shame that's attached to suicide. That doesn't make suicide non-existent. Even though we don't want to have the conversation, it's still very real.
Yeah.
And if I can't go to my church for healing, if I can't go to my church for help, who can I go to?
Yeah.
And we need to stop suppressing the reality that people are walking through this. If you're a pastor right now and you believe that there's not people in your church having suicidal ideation, you're mistaken. And the best way we can begin to attack that is allowing people to have the conversation. The second thing is start getting serious about partnering with professionals who can bring help into the congregations, who can bring help into your church and provide professional counseling for them in a way that makes an impact.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about this ladder up risk assessment.
Ladder up risk assessment, yeah. Okay, so what is it and how do you utilize it?
Yeah, so the ladder up risk...
We got two minutes, so
we'll go quick. It's an incredible way to make it organic as far as having a conversation about suicide, to extract if someone's feeling suicidal. 4 stages, right? Are they having the ideation? Is there a plan? Do they have means, and is there a time frame? And so what we do is we create an organized conversation that extracts that from someone's life.
Okay. Okay. Do we want to quickly do like an example? Okay, I'm gonna let you lead.
Okay. So let's say you're going through, for sake of a breakup, right? Something very common. So let's say you're going through a breakup. I notice that you're having some problems. I notice that you're not acting yourself, and so I come to you and I just say, Ashley, I've been noticing, something's bothering you. What's going on?
Well, I just went through a breakup, and I'm experiencing just really heavy feelings, and I don't know if I can do it anymore.
I understand. I know it's tough to go through that. I know it's tough to go through that for anyone. Let me ask you this. A lot of times when someone goes through a breakup, they have thoughts of suicide, thoughts of death, dark thoughts. You having anything like that?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. I appreciate that. It takes a lot of strength to admit that. So tell me, have you thought about how you would take your life if you were going to do that?
I have. I've thought about possibly overdose.
See, these are conversations people are afraid to have.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because
they don't want to plant seeds.
Absolutely.
But you're saying have the tough conversation.
The thought's already there. You're not planting anything.
Wow.
I'm not putting something in her mind. I'm extracting it out.
That's good.
Right? And so that's where we get into that point. When you say you have the thought, my next question would be this. Okay, so you've thought about how you would do that. It takes so much courage, right? And then my next question would be the means. And so I would say, do you have access to what you need in order to do this?
Okay, and I would say yes.
Okay, and then I would complete that up with, I'm so proud of you for being willing to talk to me about this. Have you thought about when you would carry this out?
Yes, soon.
Okay, when you say soon, how soon?
Within the next month.
Okay, understood. Well, listen, I'm going to say this to you. Because I love you and because I care about your safety and your life, I want you to make a commitment to me. I want to walk with you to go get some help. I want to keep you safe. And so that's going to be step one. And so how about this? Let's pick up the phone, call 988, see what we can do. I'm going to walk this thing out with you, and we'll make sure that you stay safe tonight. Is that cool?
Wow, absolutely. That's incredible.
Yeah,
and this is
steps.
super helpful. I mean, how can people get access to this, like who are watching at home?
So the best thing to do is to utilize it right on the website.
Okay.
So I know that it's going to be posted there. They can get a copy of that. They can do it. Once the framework is understood, it's so simple. The goal is not to make this a challenge. The goal is to allow people to have a voice who are struggling with this.
Yeah, wow.
Tell us again the name of your church.
One City Church, Chesapeake, Virginia.
One City.
It's amazing what God's done in your life.
Yeah.
God is good.
Thank you for being
Thank
with
you
us and
so
sharing.
much, Jared. Thank
Really
you.
appreciate you being
My
with us.
honor.
Yeah.
And if you're struggling, want you to know you are not alone. Reach out to a loved one or someone you can trust. Again, the suicide hotline is 988. Thank you for being with us. God bless you. We love you. See you tomorrow.
Hey everyone, I'm Ashley Key. Thank you so much for watching this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so we can reach more people with encouraging content like you just watched, and so you never miss a beat. See you next time, and God bless.